I think many of us will be in the church tomorrow to worship God. And one of the favorite songs you want to think about Nigeria singing is simply how God has done it for me. Always God doing it for me and not myself doing it. So it's become a kind of what I'll call a liturgy that pulls one back. My talk is on exploring our human endowments and being human and exploring our human endowments, covering the problems and the disease of indolence and poverty. And I discover at a way that excessive dependence on what God has done for you, what God can do for you, which has become a bug, living with us and sucking our lives these days, is probably one of the major problems that keeps man and us out there. I began by telling us that we want to take a look at what I call the humanist spirit, because the age of humanism was one where man haven't been tired about, God for us, not me for myself. The human being said, hey, come on, God gave me all the endowments in this world and empowered me. So why should I sleep and not be of help to my fellow human being? And that is what we definitely call the age of humanism. It's different from the age of God can always help us. If you go to church tomorrow, you say, Jesus, I love you. I know many of you like that song, you know it. You don't butter my bread for me. I'm going to praise you forevermore. You be Baba. But what actually we're looking at is simply this, that is it really possible that the hands given to me, my brain, my thoughts and all of that, can actually lead me to being who I ought to be and what I want to be? Haven't been created. The only business you owe yourself simply is this: survival of self and survival of species. And that's why if you ask me, why did God create man? That I continue to be and make sure that my other man continues to be. That is the only thing. And with that one, what do I owe myself? I simply owe myself helping you be and helping myself be. And how do I do that? I have so many endowments God has given to me. Do I go to sleep with them, or do I wake up with them and begin to be that man that moves society because society needs to be moved? And what society needs to be moved by cannot be quantified, counted, or even taken inventory of. And that is why the young men out there you see, the Google and the Yahoo boys, even in our age, looking at what the age has to offer, we continue to expand and extrapolate on the possibilities. And I want to tell myself that those young men said the limit of the possible when it comes to invention or what the human being needs has not been reached. And even up till today, the limits of the possible, in spite of what Larry Page and Sergey Brin had done, you never really can tell. Tomorrow still adds something to it because there are new opportunities. So is the world that we're living in today still in need? The world we live in today is in need. And it's for you to explore that need. Many of my co-speakers have actually talked about thinking, living up to asking yourself, what do I do? What does the other human being need? What is the vacuum in society that needs to be filled? If you identify this, then you probably would have gone the next stage, another slide please, for us to be able to say, yes, this is what we can do. One, we must curb what I call the sin of indolence. The sin of indolence simply means the denial of our common humanity. You sit down and you refuse to walk. But your creation, your being part of our world simply means a challenge and a demand to be other. If you are indolent, the next available option for you and the disease that follows is poverty. Poverty becomes what we call abject denial of whatever it takes to sustain and keep life. But we know that, like I've said, our challenge and our obligation to ourselves is the survival of self and survival of species. But then, when we talk about abject denial of human livelihood, there is also a kind of poverty that is self-imposed. You are not poor, you claim to be poor. You have capabilities, but you cannot work within the frame of your gifts to actualize your potentials as a human person. And these become problems that we definitely want to look at. If I have the next slide, I'll be okay. And then we begin to move on to what I call exploring our endowments. Creativity is nothing other than the ability to recognize challenges, take on the opportunities they offer, and then deliver such opportunities to humanity. And that's where we are coming to. And that is what we put out there. And then we're asking ourselves, when opportunities come, we technologize self. How do I technologize myself? I technologize myself because I am created and endowed with skill. The origin of that word technology simply means skill in its Greek original sense. So how do I deploy myself to being useful to my co-human and myself? That is what I call the technologization of self, or technologizing self. You don't need Caterpillar, you don't need the microphone, you don't need the computer. How can you deploy the skills given to you before then you look for the tools and equipment we call technology today to deliver such goods? It simply calls for mental acuteness or acuity that leads you to thinking. There are opportunities all over the world. People, I'm sure the man who started the first sachet water in Nigeria saw what I experienced too as a young man growing up in the university. You buy bread, cellophane papers, pour water into it, tie it up, put it in the fridge, it's cold, you go to hawk it on the road. And somebody wakes up and says, oh, we can get this sealer to get this thing done in this manner. We can carry a larger volume and all of that. But the story is not ended. The world is still evolving ways to find how we can always be part of a moving world, a creative world, and a world that becomes of value to all of us. And so, we come across a whole world that is clogged and cluttered because we have created, we continue to create, we discard what we've created, we pick them up again and find a place to put them in. If you cannot create, if you cannot generate, your thinking, your brain, your mind will always lead you to doing something new with what has been done before. So, there are opportunities of all sorts and kinds. The world runs in a circle, and what you thought was discarded yesterday was not necessarily needed anymore, finds a place in what we call a resurgence somewhere. The world runs in what we call continuities. We find them there. And the world accommodates what we call permanent discards. In all of this, these are opportunities we have to make one statement or another with our human and common human endowments. And so, I want to conclude by actually calling ourselves to the real ideal of the humanist. And that if you want to be a human, the human is to be another with your endowments. Contribute to our collective humanity. To our collective humanity is indeed what you owe humanity. It enriches you as it enriches our world. Offering self is to be selfless. It pays. You may discover that with what you have offered humanity, you will be ruling the world from the grave. Because oftentimes, what you created, what you invented, what your mind led you to, what your skill led you to, will outlive you for so many years. But somebody will ask, what does that care for me? What it cares for me is that you will encourage another human person to be so useful because of the legacy you left to become another useful person to humanity. It's your goal to make a difference then. It is your choice. Being creative leads you to where stars and great men have always been. And I want to thank you for listening, not for any other reason, because I believe in this one philosophy. One, It is to say, give us the next slide and then we will see what is up there. One is to say, why don't you live to love to learn how to make this whole world a beautiful place. If only you want to deploy your skill. Thank you, please, for listening.